Welcome back to the Explanation Pro. Today, I'll recap a war drama movie called Dunkirk. Spoiler incoming. The movie starts with some British soldiers roaming in an abandoned city as it seemed. The enemy had driven the British and French armies to the sea, trapped in Dunkirk hoping for evacuation, deliverance, and a miracle while being picked off from all sides by the Nazi Germans. Looking for basic needs such as food and water, that group of British soldiers was welcomed by a sudden attack, gunshots, and death with only one survivor. Tommy was lucky enough to escape to the area of his side of the army. At the coast, he saw the British army, some bringing in the injured ones, some burying the others, ships approaching the coast, and soldiers being ferried as a narrative of the mole. 1 week began. This movie comprises 3 narratives. The mole, 1 week. The sea, 1 day. The air, 1 hour. Approaching the coast, Tommy made an acquaintance with another British soldier, Gibson, who was burying a fellow soldier. As Tommy waited in the line for his turn to be ferried, the coast was approached by an air raid in which many soldiers lost their lives. However, Tommy and his new acquaintance Gibson managed to survive. They see another injured soldier lying on the sand and they both rush to help him aboard a ship which was about to depart, and with this opportunity, they would also jump the long queue and leave the mole as soon as possible. With some French soldiers pleading to be boarded as well and with the ship blazing its horns to leave the coast, they both run for their lives to the ship, but alas, only the injured soldier is let in. Here the Nazi German pilots are still in the sky, reporting the status, receiving intelligence, and bombing the waters. As the ship sailed into the sea, the two friends hid under the bridge, waiting for their next hope, for the next ship. 2 naval officers, Commander Bolton and Colonel Winnett, assessed the situation on the beach and discussed the Royal Navy's decision to use smaller civilian boats to evacuate the British soldiers safely to their territory, as these boats won't catch the eye of the Germans easily. The ray of hope, the next ship arrives at the coast of Dunkirk, in which Tommy and his friend were trying to sneak when the coast is yet again invaded by 3 jets, their roaring sound matching the heartbeat of the soldiers desperately trying to hide and not die on foreign land. The bombs damaged the bridge, killed many lives, and sunk Tommy's hope of escaping as the ship drowned in the water below. But he did manage to save a soldier, Alex, who jumped from the sinking ship. Soon Tommy, Gibson, and Alex were on another boat, finally returning home, their heart filled with relief and for once at ease. But this peace was short-lived. The boat was bombed and sunk by a torpedo. Tommy and Alex fell into the sea, where Tommy managed to find a floating support and Alex still struggling to come to the surface. But Gibson managed to save both of them just in time and the 3 made it to the shore. There, the 3 of them with the cold breeze and tiredness witnessed that even soldiers had started losing hope of ever seeing their homeland again. Some failed to make a sail because the tide was too strong to be gone against, and some even just surrendered themselves to the waves and the water accepted them peacefully. The bodies came floating back looking just as dead as their will to return. After the losses, even the Navy started sending 1 ship at a time. With war on their left and soldiers with no life left in them on the right, this decision of playing safe only made things worse. Alex caught a sight of a group of Scottish soldiers heading towards some ship, and the 3 of them joined that group as well. They found an abandoned fishing trawler not in very good condition but good enough to protect them. They all hopped in hoping for the tide to come and take them into the sea. While they were waiting, they heard some footsteps and pulled down the man to shoot him. But the man claimed to be Dutch, not German. A soldier asked him his business and why he came to the boat, to which he informed the group that the Germans were coming with more soldiers and he needed a place to hide. During this interrogation, the boat was hit by a gunshot. Unfortunately, the boat was used as target practice by the Germans. With more gunshots, the boat started filling with water and it became difficult to make it to the sea. They had to get rid of extra weight in order to sail, and Alex proposed that someone needed to get off the boat. He immediately pointed to Gibson, accusing him of being a German spy, as he was being awfully silent, which seemed suspicious because being German, he probably doesn't even know how to speak English. Tension increased as Tommy defended Gibson by reminding him that he was the one who saved both of their lives earlier and asked Gibson to speak up. With Gibson still silent, other soldiers became defensive too. They all started pointing their rifles at Gibson and accused him for murder. Finally, Gibson revealed himself to be a French soldier who took the British uniform from the dead soldier he buried earlier. With more gunshots, the boat was now half filled with water and no one was willing to get off. A tussle began which led to the boat sinking even faster than before. Seeing another ship just behind them, some soldiers got off the boat while others tried to block the holes and stop the water to enter anymore. When nothing seemed to be working out, the rest of the soldiers also started moving out. Alex asked Gibson to move out too, but he got stuck in a chain. He struggled to reach the ladder, but with no more room for air, Gibson knew there was nothing he could do. Desperately holding on to his last few breaths, he drowned. The sea, one day. The Royal Navy began recruiting small civilian ships for the evacuation process and rescuing the soldiers across the channel. Mr. Dawson, an owner of a private ship, also contributed to this cause, but he decided to take his ship along with his son Peter instead of allowing the naval officers to take charge. Leaving the coast, they were joined by a young man, George, who assured him that he would be of great use if he let him on his ship and join them. In the middle of nowhere, their boat came across a sunken British ship, with a man hanging onto his life at the tip of the boat just above the water. He was too shocked to even give his name. The father gives him shelter and food as they sail into nothingness. But soon the traumatized soldier realized that the boat was returning to the very ground he tried to escape. He tried to convince Mr. Dawson that it was not worth the risk and he should turn his boat and head home. When he started creating a fuss, the soldier was locked in a tiny cabinet where of course he created even more fuss. He escaped from the window above him and reached to the deck. He tried to convince him again, but since Mr. Dawson had no interest in returning, the soldier lost his temper and forcefully tried to take control of the boat. In this struggle, George intervened and hit his head so badly that it started bleeding. Peter immediately first aided him and controlled the bleeding for a while. But soon, he started losing his sight and his condition became worse. With death approaching, George was also filled with regret about how he never really achieved anything in his life, not even in school or in the life after school. Nothing for his parents, his dad, to be proud of, and now he was just a blind, useless guy. Peter wanted to go back and seek help for him, but Mr. Dawson reasoned that since they were far enough, returning won't be a very wise decision and they should not waste time seeking help for poor George. His fate will be his savior. The air, 1 hour. 3 Spitfire pilots, Ferrier, Collins, and their squadron leader, cover the skies to provide support and air protection to the troops. The 3 of them engaged the German fighter planes, where one of the Germans shot down the squadron leader's plane. Ferrier and Collins were now left to fend for themselves. With a broken fuel gauge due to the dogfight, Ferrier calculated the amount of time left for him to fly with whatever fuel he had left and take down the enemy as well. When the war called again, they were able to take down the enemy's plane, but Collins' plane got shot down as well and he had to do an emergency landing into the water. He had very little time left to unbuckle himself and get out of the plane before the sea takes it all in her. This fight was witnessed by Peter, Mr. Dawson's son. With water entering the plane, Colin tried to break open the window overhead, but only if it was that easy to break the fighter plane's glass. Soon there was water over his head and he struggled of air. He thought it was his end when he heard a banging on the glass. Peter and his father came to his rescue and broke the cockpit, allowing Colin to move out. Overlap. Back on the coast, with the single ship going off, a new stroke of hope spread across the army's face as they saw many small civilian boats approaching the shore of Dunkirk to rescue the soldiers. The atmosphere was filled with a wave of joy and the long-lost hope seemed to be returning. In the waters, Tommy, Alex, and the rest of the group approached a minesweeper to seek refuge. With a German plane still active, the ship was bound to drown. As the ship was bombed, oil spilled in the water and many soldiers were covered in it. Some soldiers decided to stay on the drowning ship, moving to the top, waiting for rescue, but the plane turned to them again, coming for another shot. The panicked soldiers jumped into the waters. Some were rescued by the small boats while the others still swimming. In the sky above, it was Ferrier against the German. He got hit with minimum damage and was able to defeat the enemy plane. As the plane was about to reach its tragic end, Colin, who was helping to rescue soldiers from the minesweeper, took the cue and asked Mr. Dawson to move away as fast as possible as he knew what was about to come. With oil filled in the sea, the crashing plane acted as an ignition, spreading fire on water and burning all the men alive in it. Sailing away, Peter held onto Tommy and brought him to safety. The boat was approached by a German plane. Mr. Dawson asked Peter to take the charge and move according to his commands. A few gunshots were enough to drown the boat. As the plane got near, he asked his son to turn, the moment he commands him to do so. With great accuracy and timely action, they were able to save the boat. Colin was curious how Mr. Dawson even knew all this stuff, to which he replied that his older son, Peter's brother, was in the army as well. Alex found out that George was dead. Following the rescue, the Dawsons returned home and Peter took George's picture to the local newspaper so that he will be remembered as a hero who sacrificed his life for his nation. Ferrier took down another German plane and after some time landed his plane by the shore and set it on fire as a safety precaution, but was captured by the Germans later. Tommy, Alex, and the other soldiers were being sent back home through the railways, but Alex was haunted by the fear of loss and worthlessness. He feared that his people would see him and the army as a big failure who made a joke of themselves in the war. Back in Dunkirk, Bolton and Winnett were able to get 300,000 British soldiers to rescue when only 30,000 were initially being planned to save. It was time for them to return as well, but Winnett refused to leave as there were more lives to be saved back in Dunkirk. He decided to help the French to seek refuge and be evacuated as well. Here, Alex and Tommy were soon to be home, and with the British soldiers returning, Winston Churchill issued a welcome article in the newspaper which Alex asked Tommy to read. It mentioned the bravery and the sacrifice of the soldiers. All the soldiers were wholeheartedly welcomed by the civilians, with applause. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and also subscribe my channel for more videos like this. See you in the next video.